Welcome back, listeners. This is CTOK 93.4 FM, and we're live on the air.
Welcome back, friends.
Hi.
It's time. Matt's here. He's here in body. I don't know if he's here in spirit.
I'm about 75% here.
Yeah. He came back from our vacation with a present, a souvenir, a gift. Not the Rona. We tested. He's clear, but it was still nasty.
I didn't get out of bed for 2 days.
So it was kind of like an extended vacation, but with lots of mucus and fever and moaning and sadness.
Yeah.
I'm fine. So
I'm feeling better now.
well, that's good. You're feeling good enough. Feeling up to some Forever Night. So that's
Yep.
good. Because guess
That's
what?
saying a lot.
It's a Forever Night
I'm
episode.
just teasing.
You like this show. You just don't want to admit to yourself that you like this show.
It's like Pippin getting snuggled.
I can see through you.
He can't admit that he likes snuggles.
Yeah.
You know,
That'd be
beneath his dignity.
beneath his dignity. But goddamn, does he like a snuggle?
I probably don't like Forever Night as much as Pippin likes to snuggle.
Yeah, but the metaphor stands.
Yeah.
Simile? Metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
Metaphor. So we are on episode 10, season 1 of Forever Night.
That means this is the 10th Forever Night episode.
It is. Congratulations to us.
Yay.
It means we are almost halfway through season 1, which means we are almost a sixth of the way through the entire series. That's good. I don't know if it's good. I'll be sad when we wrap this up, I think. But this one is Dead Air. All right, so hi, friends. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. But I haven't split the pot officially yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, guys, we have one more piece of business. We're splitting the pod. I announced it in the Books with Talk. Books with Talk. I announced it in the Book Talk with Kate episode, but it was at about hour 3, minute 10. So, hey, if you
Maybe
missed
not
it,
everybody got there.
if you missed it, it's fine. It's fair. I get it. You missed some really, really animated discussion. You should
I
probably
slept through the whole recording.
The recording process. The recording process.
Yes, the recording
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, because you were knocking on death's door in there.
Yeah, I think I came out for like 10 minutes and Kate
Yeah.
told me to go lay down.
Yeah, Kate went, whoa, that's go away. Go lay down. You look very wraith-like hoodie with the hood up.
Yep.
You were paler than usual. Yeah, it wasn't great. But anyway, we're splitting the pod. That's the whole point of this. We kind of naturally split the pod already, so we're just going to go ahead and do it. And we're going to have Strange and Beautiful Book Club. We'll continue to host Rachel and Kate discussing various books. It'll be the book club.
And any books with Rachel and Matt would go under there too.
Yeah. And we have a third mic now, so we could do any combination thereof.
Yeah.
Kate, Rachel, and Matt. Rachel and Matt. Rachel and Kate.
Yeah, maybe once I get through more of the Court of Thorns and Roses books,
Yeah.
we can have a 3-person conversation
I think
about
that'd
it.
be really fun. Yeah. So that's where the books will continue to live. But we will also be starting a second podcast for our movies and television show episodes.
Link in the show notes.
Not yet. I'm keeping it hush. I'll keep it a little hush. You gotta come back and find out about it. I'll probably be announcing all that stuff on Instagram this coming week because I want to wait till I migrate.
It'll be on Instagram. It'll be on the website.
Yeah, we're gonna migrate our hosting platform. So once I get everything moved over and I get our new host set up, I'll be announcing everything because then I'll feel like my chickens have hatched and I can show them off instead of like I got eggs. I'm almost certain they're gonna hatch, but I'm not 100%. So we're gonna wait on that. But that's a little surprise coming up for you guys. Might even be ready by our movie episode this week, which is going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that will be coming out Friday.
Neither Rachel nor I have seen this movie.
Nope, should be good. But anyway, in the meantime, let's get started. So it's Forever Night. We know it's the 90s, but if we didn't know it was the 90s, sure as fuck do after this intro, because this woman has got 90s perm. She's smoking inside. She's hosting a radio program. I mean, we got the whole 90s package here. Especially the smoking inside. Like, you forget when we were children, it was legal to like smoke in restaurants.
Yeah, that's...
Remember going to a restaurant and they'd be like smoking or non, and you just had to hope that you weren't on the table that was somehow the delineation between the smoking and the non section. Like
There's an invisible wall there.
Like the smoke magically stayed on that side.
Right.
Yeah.
Or how about this, honey? The smoking section of the airplane.
Oh my God. Right. Yeah. So the 90s was 30 years ago. I know that makes me feel old as shit, but sometimes you forget how long ago it really was, because I can remember it. So it was a long time ago. Anyway, so she's smoking. She's got smoking 90s perm hair. And she's hosting like a kinky, intimate radio show where people call in and talk about...
Tell me your fantasies.
Yeah, various sexual and relationship fantasies.
It's not always relationship stuff, because one of them was like the shadow side of yourself.
Oh, yeah. It's just like taboo, like that walking the line of taboo.
Yes.
Yeah. So this guy, the guy that calls in, is definitely walking the line because he kills somebody on the air. And that's our murder.
Well, he starts off by having the woman talking.
Oh, yeah.
The lady says, "You turned me on." And she says, "Oh, is it because..." Or does she switch callers?
She switched callers.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was looking at Matt with like a really confused expression.
I thought he had
the
woman on the air.
No, and then they said there's another
caller
caller because
okay.
he says you turned me on. She tries to get that person to keep talking, and they like giggle, and so she switches to another caller,
Okay.
and that caller is the one that is the murderer. Okay. This is our murder du jour of the episode, which is this fellow calling into Christina Noble's radio program and killing people on the air. So now that we've set that up, go right into our intro. Yeah. He was brought across in 1228. Hey, I think we should do an Instagram reel where we redo the intro. I'll do that.
I'm down.
We'd have to try to get permission to use that music.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It would probably fall under creative use.
I don't know. Well,
we're modifying it.
I'm in a Facebook group, Forever Night Fan Club Facebook group,
yeah.
and Fred Nolan is on that group. So I can ask him.
You could ask.
I can ask.
Hey, Fred.
Hey, Fred.
Can I use your music?
Can I use your music in a totally non-ironic way? Like, we really totally love your show. We just review it and take it apart piece by piece because we love it so much. I love it so much. Matt, don't give me that look. So anyway, when we cut to Stone Tree, and Stone Tree's like angry. He's angry this whole episode. He's real mad. He's like big mad this entire episode. Maybe it's
his time of the month.
I don't know. It's something. There's a full moon. Skanky's got some, whatever his astrological symbol is in retrograde or whatever. I don't know, but he's
Maybe this is Stone Tree's werewolf period.
Could be. God, would that have been a better show? Shit.
If Stone Tree was a werewolf?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
He's already Native American. He could pull off.
Oh, we're going to get our 90s Native American mysticism episode. Oh, don't you just hold on to those hot little pants,
sir. Is that with Stone Tree, or is that a later season?
Oh, it's later season.
Ah, darn.
You know, we always get them. The 90s always had one. You could count on it. It was like clockwork. It was like the seasons. It just popped up. All of a sudden, there was some really kitschy chanting, and there was usually this person that lives in a city but is somehow still deeply entrenched in. I mean, it was you could always count on it, right? And we're gonna get it, but we're not gonna get it yet. But anyway, I would like to explore this idea of Stone Tree being a werewolf further, because that sounds like that would make If you added some more supernatural creatures to this show, it's a totally different show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that I want to see
I'm
the
thinking
90s version of the
if we knew
werewolf
somebody that wrote Forever Night fan fiction,
Don't want you to
this
give me
might
that
be a really interesting prompt for that person to write some new fan fiction.
I'm in this picture and I don't like it. So anyway, Stone Tree is talking to Christina Noble, and she's smoking again. She just smokes everywhere she is. She doesn't even ask. She just smokes.
It was the 90s. You didn't have to ask.
Whatever. And she's trying to tell him that somebody was killed on her radio program. And he's like, allegedly. Allegedly, someone was killed on your radio program. Which, hey, Stone Tree, just wild tip here. Let's assume the murder happened until proven otherwise instead of the other way around. Because I'd rather have you try to solve a murder that didn't happen than not solve a murder that did happen. Just a little tip there.
Right. This is a little bit mansplaining.
Yeah. Where he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. She's like, no, literally, he killed her on my program. I have the tape. Do you want my help on this? And he's like, no, we'll call you. You go
darling,
home. You go home.
We can take care of this. The police are good at this kind of thing.
Yeah, and she's wearing an amazing top, which we watched this episode twice. And Matt commented on the top both times. It is low. And she's not wearing any kind of a bra at all. She's gesticulating wildly.
And everything is filled out.
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting a lot of left to the imagination with this top. So she turns around to leave.
And slam right into Nick.
Yeah.
And he goes, whoa. And I said, well, it's because he almost got staked.
Because it's cold in there, guys. I'm just going to leave. It's cold in there. And so he's like, whoa, meter running?
Because she's in a hurry.
Because she's in a hurry. And so he gets a little bit of chit chat with Stone Tree. And Stone Tree continues his angry man routine. He does not like Christina Noble at all. And he's like, psychiatry is supposed to help people. It's not supposed to be used as some kind of on the air gimmick. So maybe Stone Tree I don't know. I don't know where Stone Tree's getting this extra anger from, but he's going to carry this burden through the entire episode. And Nick is in his signature look, which is a suit jacket and a shirt buttoned all the way to the top, sans tie. Nick has worn a tie once, and that's in the episode where he had to go to the court, where he had to talk in court. And so later, Nick and Skanky are driving in the car, which they're always driving in the car with no specific destination. Are they just driving around?
It doesn't make sense for detectives to just be cruising around.
Yeah, you think they'd have
if you're a patrolman, sure.
Yeah. Well, they're in the car.
And they're in Canada, so who knows?
They're discussing especially with Nick's gas prices, right?
Well, no. Okay. With Nick's gas mileage, yes. With the price of gas in the 90s, not so much. It's kind of a break-even thing.
Yeah, true. Fun fact, my childhood family car had 2 gas tanks. Two of them.
So you could make it between gas stations.
Yeah, so you could make it between gas stations because it got 8 miles to the gallon. So Skanky is complaining about this television or this radio program. And he actually gets a fun line with Nick where he's like, why are you defending Christina Noble? You always fall for the damsel in distress.
Never listen to this stuff. The job's enough of a reminder what a colorful world we live in.
I know what real fear looks like. She was scared.
And scared that her ratings might slip.
No, she had that cornered look like she'd gotten in too deep.
Oh, come on, Nick. You know what I worry for you? Every time you fall for this damsel in distress routine. For your information, Christina Noble is a hardened pro. I bet you right now she's back in the saddle again, so to speak.
Which is true. It's true. Nick
right.
Always.
He's not wrong.
Always falls for the damsel in distress. And then he goes to talk about all of the things that Christina has had on her show that make her not the damsel in distress.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Nick's
Skanky's just reciting
this one
8
time,
things.
This one time on her show, and then this other time. And Nick's like, you sure know a lot about this show for somebody that doesn't ever listen to it.
Right.
Skanky's like, it's research. It's research.
Skinky's face goes real straight. Oh.
Yeah, it's research. And so Skinky's like, I bet she's back on. And Nick's like, no, somebody just murdered himself.
Oh, yeah, she's a hardened pro.
She's a hardened pro. And so Skinky turns the radio to her program, and of course she's back on. And while they're listening, the killer calls in and is getting ready to kill another woman. And so Nick pulls off to the side.
He mentions the bridal suite, and Nick is like, okay, that's specific enough for me to try to hunt it down.
Yeah. So he pulls the car off to the side. He turns it off, hops out, and Skanky's like, where are you going? And Nick's like, oh, I'm going to call it into the station.
Like he doesn't have a radio in the car specifically to call things in. Like he doesn't have a cell phone in the car specifically to call things in. He has to get out.
He has an actual cell phone because we use it in this episode. But he gets out and he's like, I got to go call this in. I'll see you later, Skanky. Whoosh! And he dips because, of course, he runs down an alleyway and then he takes off. He flies off to land on a rooftop and do the standard superhero stand on the rooftop and listen for the damsel.
Superhero super hearing
thing.
Listening amongst the tall buildings for the room where there's a guy talking.
Right. Like he could pick that out of the entire... Well, I don't know. Maybe he could.
If he tried hard enough.
And then we get our first flashback of the episode, which this flashback is shoehorned into this.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were like,
Okay, we need a similar experience from Nick's past.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go...
LaCroix and Jeanette are going to be there.
Okay.
But it needs to be a ritualistic, cathartic killing of another person to recreate the experience of killing another person who was very close to you in your past, probably a parent. But it needs to be from one of Nick's memories.
Yeah, it can't be Nick because that makes him a little villainous. It can't be Jeanette because we don't ever learn shit about her background.
Okay.
So it's got to be LaCroix.
Who would LaCroix kill? Okay. Well, it can't be exactly the same. So it can't be LaCroix's mother. Okay, so it's LaCroix in this ritualistic, cathartic killing of his father.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we got it.
It's money. It's gold. So we get our LaCroix patricide fantasy, which is this entire flashback. Huzzah! Where LaCroix is making incomprehensible statements about, like, father.
Tell me you love me.
Tell me you love me. And it's a little...
Tell me you forgive me.
Yeah, and the first time we see Nick, he's wearing, like, a chainmail, crusade-style chainmail hood. And then several other times when we come back, he just has this long blonde wig. And he's sort of in the background and it's dim, probably because this wig is not amazing. And this is one of our least successful flashbacks, I would say. I mean, we get a couple of... I think we're supposed to be trying to get, like... this is why LaCroix is how he is, because he had daddy issues. And that somehow relates to this thing that's going on. But at the same time, you're left wondering, like, what the actual fuck is happening? Because Jeanette is in on it. She's helping.
Jeanette is inciting this.
Yeah, she's legitimately happy to help in this fantasy of LaCroix murdering his father.
Which maybe LaCroix kind of builds up, like, psychological baggage.
Yeah.
And then just every 10 or 20 years, he needs to go through ritual patricide.
Yeah.
And just to release the tension.
Yeah, okay.
And so she, over 1,000 years of Jeanette being with LaCroix, just hanging out, whatever. She's kind of figured out, like
LaCroix, is it time to dress somebody up like your dad and kill them again? Will that help? Will you feel that? I got you a present.
It's like noticing when your spouse is hangry and pulling the bag of snacks out of your purse.
It's nothing like
a
Snickers.
Like, hey, honey, don't you need a Snickers?
Yeah.
Or here's a bag of peanuts.
So anyway, that's our flashback, which we talked about it longer than the actual flashback is. I think if you chunked out all the parts of it and put it together, it's about 3 minutes long. We get almost no flashback in this episode. We do get a flying scene.
Yes.
Because Nick takes off from the top of this
The
hotel.
roof of the building. Yeah.
And it's like a whoosh.
And I mentioned to Rachel, this was probably the cleanest flying scene yet.
Yeah.
Because it was small and it looks like they paid somebody enough money to do this well that they pulled it off. And it's such a short time frame and it's like small on the screen.
Yeah.
So it's just this tiny green screen effect of probably a miniature rather than trying to do a camera of an actual actor.
Yeah. And so Skanky, who's in the car and who used the radio in the car to call for backup. Thank God Skanky wasn't relying on Nick to leave and call for backup. Like, oh, I don't know. Nick said he was going to, because Nick didn't call for any fucking backup. He just dipped, took off to a rooftop. So Skanky actually called. You know what? He calls in backup before Nick has even like left his line of sight.
Right.
He picks up the radio and calls it in, and they're like, well, there's a emergency, you need to get to it. And he's like, I'm flying solo.
I'm solo in the car.
Yeah, Nick's gone. And they're like, whatever, Nick did his thing, sorry Skank, you got to get to the place, there's an emergency. So while Nick was trying to like Doppler radar his way to the bad guy, they found a dead body. And this is our only Natalie scene in the entire episode.
Oh yeah.
And for someone who is who just lost their brother after he got shot by a bad guy, turned into a vampire, murdered half a dozen people, and then got staked in front of her, she's remarkably calm. In fact, she makes a vampire joke. She's like, wow, this makes you vampires look like fluffy bunnies. And then she throws the blanket over the top of the dead body and just dips.
It's just cover for people that missed that episode. So, and they don't have any hints. There's no spoilers.
Yeah.
For when the reruns come on.
I guess. Well, Natalie dips, and that's it. That's Natalie. Hi, Natalie. Bye, Natalie. We don't see Natalie ever again. This whole episode is very, it feels very odd. It's
very Nick-centric.
It's Nick-centric, but it's also very out of time. There's not a clear timeline of what's happening because Nick arrives at the apartment where they found the dead body. Oh, that's not this one. This one is like a, I don't know, but they've got a terrible popcorn ceiling. I noted it both times we watched it. Whoever applied that popcorn ceiling did a real shitty job. Or the roof or the ceiling it was applied on was pretty shitty to start with because it's like patchy. It's nasty. It's not a great apartment. But Nick gets there and he's like, oh, this is definitely related to our radio killer. And Stone Tree's like, you don't have any fucking proof of that. I don't see any fucking proof, Nick. And Nick's like, oh, okay, cool. So he picks up the phone and pushes redial, and it's like,
he's
hey.
like, where's her phone?
Yeah.
He's like what do you say?
Miracle of modern convenience. Yeah.
Not enough.
There's got to be another link here somewhere.
Wait a sec. Where's the phone?
It's bagged. We're checking it for prints.
Let me see. Well, here's the modern conveniences. Automatic redial.
CTOK radio, can I help you?
Automatic redial.
Yeah, so he takes the phone out of the evidence bag, out of the evidence box, and plugs it back in and hits automatic redial, which I didn't see gloves on his hands when he was pulling it out of the evidence bag.
Fucking T it, he didn't have gloves
But
on.
then when he's holding the phone up to his ear, he has on a glove.
Holy shit, we did some actual police work.
Hey! We actually maintained the forensic evidence.
Woohoo!
Hoorah!
Good job, you guys. So he pushes redial and it goes CTOK, which is the radio station. And Nick's like, what's that? Oh, that's some fucking evidence, Stone Tree. That's what that is. And so Stone Tree, still angry, walks them out. And he's like, Stone Tree, Skanky, and Nick get a little bit of a chit chat. And Skanky suggests looking through records And Nick is like, okay, well, you go do that. I think we should put a tap on the phone at the radio station. And Stone Tree's like, okay, I'm putting Nick on that. And Skanky's like, well, why does Nick get to go talk to the people? Why does he get the live ones? And Stone Tree's like, they like him.
Nick, I want you to go down to the radio station tomorrow. In the meantime, we better start checking hotel bridal suites.
How come he gets the live ones?
They like him.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's fair. So then we cut to Nick is tapping the radio phone line. He has this whole setup that he's got in like an adjacent room.
Which seems weird. It seems like a magic piece of technology.
I looked it up. It's a thing. Like I Googled it.
Oh, you did?
Because it has a label
From
on
what
the
I've
top.
heard, you coordinate that with the phone company, and the phone company traces it through their own system.
Yeah, I looked up the thing. There's like a label. They very clearly show the thing they're
brand of
using with
the
the
appliance.
like appliance and the name of exactly what it is
Okay.
on it. And so I did look it up. And I don't remember the specifics because this is when we first watched it, which was pre-vacation. And this is post-vacation. But I remember
we
feeling...
drank a lot of brainwipe juice.
Oh my God. Hey guys. It's like when you have candy in a jar. Anyone want to guess how many alcoholic drinks we managed to pack away in 3 days? Hey,
Between two people.
whoever gets the closest gets a shout out on the show.
You can comment on Instagram. Maybe we'll put it up as an Instagram.
Oh, an Instagram
Thing.
poll or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you can do that. I don't know Instagram that well. But yeah,
We
so
can definitely do a poll on Discord.
the few brain cells that I have left are all high-fiving each other because we were satisfied with whatever I discovered when I Googled it last time. And what it is just like a number, a line of numbers, and then like 3 buttons. And so Nick pushes 2 of the buttons, like prepping it. And then Christina Noble starts her show. And the guy, of course, calls in. Of course he calls in. And Nick pushes the thing to trace it, but the guy has like a little stopwatch. Because somehow
So we
he knows
see
they're
from
tracking him.
his perspective, the first time he calls in, he goes up to a payphone, which some people listening may have never seen one in the wild. There were just phones on posts, and you put physical money in, and you dial. Anyway,
Find a YouTube video. I'm sure they exist.
so we see him walk up wearing gloves. He drops a couple quarters in, calls the number, and starts a stopwatch as soon as they pick up. And then the last time you see the stopwatch, it's at like 50 seconds. And then he says, he
just hangs up.
He says his last line
Yeah.
and hangs up. And it's right before they get the last number on the phone trace appliance.
Yeah. Which Christina holds it together pretty well. She does.
Yeah, as Nick is prompting her.
Yeah, like keep going, whatever. But she's...
Keep him talking.
Yeah, she's doing a really good job pretending like she's not super upset about this. Right up until the very end, where she feels like she pushes him a little hard, and that's why he hangs up. And Nick's like, no, you can't blame yourself about that, because he goes in to chat with her to calm her down and assure her that she did a good job. And the guy says, hey, Nick, or the guy in the phone booth, the guy answering the phones and directing them to Christina, says, hey, Nick, you've got a call, and it's Skanky. Do you want me to put it on speaker? And Nick's like, oh, Skanky's your biggest fan. He's probably just here to call and talk about the show. And so they put it on speaker, and Skanky's like, we found another body.
We found a second body.
Found a second body. And Christina's like, oh my God, you found bodies? And Nick's like, oh, that's
police
business. That's
business.
police business. Yes, I can't comment on that. And so then he just dips. And we get a view of the city where it's almost dawn. So for some reason, we're establishing that it's close to dawn when Nick arrives at this apartment. I'm not really sure why it's...
Oh, right. Okay. So they arrive at the bridal suite.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Is this the bridal? No, this isn't the bridal.
This is the bridal suite.
Oh, yes. This is the bridal suite
This is the
body.
second body.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the second body. Here's my perception of what happened. Nick arrives as forensics is, as they're kind of clearing the scene. And then Dr. Christina Noble arrives.
Yep.
And Skanky's like, what the fuck, Nick?
Yeah. But right before that, we get a little bit more flashback, just a little sliver of flashback. And it's the part where Nick is like, what the fuck is wrong with you, LaCroix? LaCroix's like, if it bothers you, don't fucking watch.
For the pleasure, for the sheer creativity of doing it.
You sicken me, LaCroix.
Don't watch.
And I also noted that Skanky is getting the mutton chops. If you remember when we
yes, his sideburns are growing longer.
Yes,
longer.
when we did the Dark Knight episodes, I said that Skanky had mutton chops. And you were like, no, he doesn't have mutton chops. He just has the weird, like, 90s haircut. And I remember Skanky with mutton chops. And so now I know why. It's because in the second half of this whole season, he's got mutton chops. So I just want to vindicate myself on that one. Skanky's got mutton chops. But Christina does show up to do a little profiling. She mentions that
she wants to volunteer to help with the
she
investigation.
Had interned as a forensic psychiatrist.
She did 3 years of her residency in forensic psychiatry.
And so she's like, oh, the victim wore that lipstick, didn't they? And they're all like, oh my God, how did you know? She's like,
a woman doesn't crush the lipstick when she applies it herself.
One, it's in an evidence bag. So, I don't know. Well,
surprise.
Well, surprise. That's a pretty big smoke screen there. Also, it's smushed, which women don't do. And I just, wild guess, it's in an apartment with the lady that died. And it's getting late. Skanky's like, look, we're getting ready to close up. And the people from forensics are going to come back later and pick all this shit up. So we're all leaving. We can't leave you here alone.
So Nick's like, I'll vouch for her. I'll stay here with her. And then after Skanky leaves, then we get a cut to the sun rising. And so it's like, oh, now Nick is stuck here during the day.
Yeah, Christina like cracks the blinds.
Yeah.
And he's like, scared. He doesn't actually do that. We don't make a big deal out of it, which is why I don't know why we included it at all.
So that we see him.
Unless there's some
trunk.
filler. We're going to get dumped about 6 minutes of filler towards the end. So unless there was something relevant that happened related to him being there during the day that we cut because it wasn't working. That's the only thing I can think of.
Right. I was thinking that in the original cut, there was probably one extra day. And the extra day was him hanging out with that filler stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't sleep, so he was angstily playing chess with himself with his robe half undone while it thunderstorms outside.
No, I think we dropped that in as filler because we cut something. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like we cut a scene.
Content out.
We cut a content,
and
we needed to fill in 6 minutes or so. Unless there was more flashback that we cut, which is, I can definitely see that getting gutted a little bit. But that's the only reason I can think of that we make such a big deal about the fact that he's there during the day. Because normally we just sort of avoid that issue, or we make a huge deal out of it. It's never a middle of the road topic, which is kind of how we treat it. So he ends up there with her, and she kind of goes over like a profile, and she's really describing Nick.
The lab report said that the hair samples came back Caucasian.
Yeah.
I'd add to that attractive, intelligent, charming.
A guy with a lot going for him.
Yes. Everything except the most important thing. Self-esteem. He doesn't feel part of the human race, less than. So the rules that apply for us don't apply for him. That's what enables him to go on killing, punishing.
Punishing women.
Yes, and himself. You see, each murder is an act of self-hatred. Each murder confirms his belief that he's worthless.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Thanks. Matt. So, yeah. Or LaCroix, really. It could go either way. But we're kind of left with this is slightly unsettling because she's describing our main
This is
character.
the profile of someone who could just be a serial killer.
Yeah.
And that includes Nick.
Who is a serial killer.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
in
a reformed serial
he's
killer.
in a latency period. But yeah, still.
He's a dormant serial killer.
Yeah, they do that. BTK did that. Yeah, until somebody wrote an article about him, and then he flipped his shit and was like, oh my God, guys, I'm back in the news. And so then, yeah, anyway, that's a whole other thing. So Skanky, meanwhile, has gone to examine the psych records because he finally got a warrant. Because they know this person was a patient, like a psychiatric patient,
Right.
or they have
The
presumed
profile,
that it might be.
yeah.
Yeah. And so he goes to the one and only psychiatric hospital. I don't know why we go to this one in particular, but he presents the warrant. Well, he first gets into an argument with the female orderly.
Oh, man.
Because, God, have we not had enough skanky sexism in
And
this episode?
Skanky's casual sexism finally bites him in the ass.
Okay, I mean, it
on
bites
the
him in
job.
the ass, usually immediately, but this
Okay,
one's on the
but-
job. Yeah.
Yeah, this one is directly relevant to his work activities.
Yes.
Usually it's just him getting a cold shoulder or whatever. It's all like social repercussions.
Yeah.
But here he actually has like work, like responsibility repercussions.
Yeah, so Skanky has made this woman, this nurse probably, angry with him. And so when he presents the warrant, he's like, hey, she goes, I'm sure they would make for great reading, but we can't just let anybody look at our records. And he's like, well, how about a warrant? And he pops out the warrant. And so she takes him to a room that's literally floor to ceiling boxes. And he goes, oh my God, don't you guys have like a computer? Isn't this all in some computer somewhere? She goes, yeah, it is.
She says something like, the warrant just says access to our records, not the database.
Have fun, bitch. And she just leaves. Tips. And so we go back to Christina and Nick. And this is when she's describing him during the profiling stuff. And she recalls a patient that she once had, which is a really on the nose. She apparently only had one problematic patient, and that was enough to get her to quit. And so somehow she's like, yeah, this is really weird because this is exactly the kind of thing that he would do. Huh, that's really weird. And we also have a cut earlier on in the show where we see him with a bag that has a curly haired wig in it, but we never. And Nick makes a mention of the fact that this person's mother, because this person that she was treating, who she ended up hospitalizing, their mother must have had blonde curly hair because.
Right.
And
Because
so,
the victims have all so far had.
well, it's implied
hair.
that he's dressing them up with makeup and blonde curly wigs, but we don't ever see it and we don't really fully explore it, which is why I wonder if this is part of whatever was deleted.
Oh,
Because
I
we
don't
get-
remember them ever mentioning that he put a wig on them.
Well, I have seen this episode probably like 8 or 9 times. So there's a scene where there's a bag on the floor and there's a spilled wig, and the wig is blonde curly hair.
Yeah.
And then when she's profiling the guy, she says he's continuously killing his mother over and over again. But since it's not his mother,
He has to keep doing
he has to
it.
keep doing it. And Nick says, let me guess, she had blonde curly hair. And there's literally no reason for him to have said that unless the victims were getting dressed up with blonde curly hair. And we don't, that's it. Those are the 2 references to it that still exist. And so that's why I think something was missing in here, because she does mention that part of, like, when he got out and when she was treating him, he started to treat her like he treated his mother.
Yeah.
So he had transferred his feelings to her. And Nick calls it, he goes, yeah, it's transference. She goes, yeah, that's what they call it. And he's clearly dressing these women up like Christina Noble, which no one calls out at all. Except in this moment where he says, let me guess, they had blonde curly hair. Never once imagining that the fact that Christina Noble has blonde curly hair could somehow relate to this case.
Right. And
This
that
is
they're
why it
calling
feels
into
very.
her show.
This feels very hand. Like they didn't tie it. There's so many loose, just flapping in the wind threads all over this episode. That
Right. Why did they never connect it to her personally?
Right, because he was calling into
He's
her
calling into
radio
her
program.
show. And
Yeah.
only her show.
They're just like, oh, it's because he wanted to get on the air. Well, he wanted to get on the air specifically with her.
Right.
Anyway, so we get another flashback segment, and this is the one where LaCroix's like, Oedipus,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me you love me, Oedipus.
Yeah.
Tell me I forgive you, Oedipus.
Right. And Nick's like, Oedipus killed his father on accident. Laqua's like, nobody
one believes that.
anymore.
Give me Oedipus, my son, for the treacherous introduction to the world that I gave you.
Oedipus killed his father by accident.
Nobody believes that. Not anymore.
And that's it. That's it. That's the end of that flashback. I mean, there's no more flashback. Nick, who is now trapped in this apartment because he arrived at dawn and then he chatted up Christina Noble, which this woman is not good looking. She's striking. She has an extremely large face.
Yeah.
And she has these really high cheekbones and they're really pretty, but she's got this 90s makeup on where she's clearly...
It almost looks like she's had a facelift.
Well, she's taken out her eyebrows. She's tweezed out her entire eyebrows and she's drawn in an eyebrow in a really odd spot.
Right.
And it's like a single line and it ends up like foreshortening her entire face. Like,
yeah.
And so it ends up feeling disproportionate. Like her face takes up more of her head than it should. And she's also got a kind of, I don't know if this is her natural curly hair or not, but I was looking her up on IMDb and she was in like 1 to 2 episodes of pretty much every iconic television show in the 90s.
So it's probably her natural hair.
Yeah. So I don't know, but anyway, they're quite flirty. Nick flirts with anything female. So Skanky is just constantly insulting women and Nick is constantly flirting with them.
Okay, so hot take. Skanky has a little bit of an incel vibe.
Oh, that's not a hot take. That's just that's a full-on analysis.
Well, hot take in that it just popped into my mind now.
Yeah, no, he's
when
a little...
I was thinking through the description of how he's behaving.
Yeah.
And so Skanky is always ogling the women.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then getting defensive because they act aggressively toward him.
Right.
And so he makes casually sexist remarks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm following.
Whereas Nick treats every single person like a human being.
Oh, what? Seriously? Like
And
women
then-
are people too?
And then they act nice to him. And then he flirts with them.
Right.
Because, oh, you're being nice to me.
Yeah.
I'll be nice. I'll play around with you verbally. And
It's very rarely an overly like sexual flirtiness. It's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
a fun
It's just a
camaraderie,
playful-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only every once in a while does he really like act on an attraction.
Right.
And usually it's very much reciprocated or they're attempting to make it seem like it's reciprocated. Like with Elise, where
Right.
she, especially in Dark Knight Part 1 and 2 versus Nick Knight, where the Elise and Nick Knight, it felt a little forced.
yeah.
It felt like he was like love bombing her. But in Dark Knight 1 and 2, we get a much more natural, they're slightly attracted to each other. They're in like a heightened
Yeah.
emotional
they had better
situation.
chemistry.
And so they're just acting on their attraction.
Right.
So that's what I always like where Nick really is kind. He's generally kind to everybody that he comes across. Very rarely is he a dick. I mean, sometimes the one where he breaks into her apartment, he gets a little sexually aggressive in that episode, but it's all part of what he's doing.
Right. That's part
He's
of the character that
reacting
he's
to her.
playing
Yeah.
undercover.
Right. So Nick is stuck in this apartment for what I have decided, is some particular reason that we're never going to know about. And so they go down to the parking garage, which thank God it had a parking garage or he really would have been stuck in the apartment all day. And he and Christina Noble have kind of a flirty, a slightly charged goodbye where she says, thanks for listening.
Yeah,
And
like
he's like,
she's
you know what,
trying
you're
to draw
really
him
good
out
at
a
that.
little bit more.
Yeah. And he's like, you were really good at that. You shouldn't have just given it up. And she's like, I hear you. And he's like, okay, well, I'll see you later. Bye. And then he gets in his car and we get the cool thing where he watches her walk away in his rearview mirror and you see part of his face in the rearview mirror and you see her retreating in the rearview mirror. And then as soon as she's gone, he gets out of the car, unlocks his trunk and climbs in the trunk because that's where he's got to spend the day. And so He's chilling in the trunk all day. Meanwhile, Skanky is still going through records, which
Poor
he
Skanky.
must have spent the day. Okay, so they were out at night together.
Yeah.
And when he called in for backup, they went and got so when he called in for backup, they told him there was an emergency. So he went to the building that had the first body in it.
Yeah.
Nick showed up. They found out it was from the radio program. Nick left to go bug the radio program. Skanky left to go check the records, right? He
I
left
don't think
to go
he
get
went to check the records until after the second body was found.
but he left. He went to go get a warrant. He's been trying to get a warrant for the records.
Right.
And so he's been up this whole time because then they get a call about a second body. Because when Nick is working at the radio program, Skanky's the one who calls him and tells him there's a second body. So then they go to this apartment with the second body.
Right.
And it's dawn. So Skanky's been up all night.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, while Nick is in the trunk, Skanky is at the hospital checking records during the day.
Right. That's when he finally got the warrant.
Right.
Is after he
So
left.
Skanky
the
is not
apartment.
only up all night, he's now working the day shift. That's why I'm saying the timeline in this episode doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Skanky could have. They don't really give a hint of at what time of day does Skanky go with the warrant. Does he get to go home and take a nap first?
Well, we do though, right? Because Skanky sneaks a chance at using the computer
Okay.
because he pauses to call Nick.
But that must be the next night. If
Yeah,
he
because
calls Nick.
he pauses to call Nick. Okay, so we paused and rewatched the episode because we were getting ourselves real wrapped up and confused there. And I have to admit, we are still confused, but we have now rewatched the episode. So Nick spends the night in the trunk. And
The
then
day.
The day. He spends the day in the day in the trunk.
And
then
we get a sunset shot.
and then he goes to the
Station to talk to Stonetree. And
Right.
Stonetree's like, "What the fuck are you doing, you fucking fucker?"
Yeah,
like just
Stonetree
chewing him out.
Still big mad. He's like, if we wanted a psychiatrist, you should have told me. I'd have hired a real one.
Right.
Yeah.
And so while Nick is just casually just sprawled across the front of Stonetree's desk, Skanky calls. Oh, put him on. Skanky's like, "Oh man, I got blisters on my corneas from all this reading." He's like, "Nick, come help me out, man. Like, give a brother a hand." And Nick's like, "Fuck you.
He's like-
you read the records."
He's like, I'm
I'm
pretty
out.
sure Stonetree gave you the reading job. I'm the hot one. You're the research guy. So you could get on that. And so Skanky hangs up the phone, ogles a woman. It's just kind of palate cleanser for Skanky, I guess.
yeah.
And then as he's walking away from the phone, he sees a door open, and inside there is a computer. And he sits at the computer. He's like, oh, yeah. And so he just heads and shuts the door behind him.
Okay, so this is a contrast to the Dark Knight pilot episode where they're in the hospital. Nick is in the room with the computer, and Skanky realizes the door is unlocked because they want access to the computer records, but they don't have a warrant at that point. And so Skanky like opens the door and peeks in, and he's like, "Nah,
No.
I'll wait for a warrant." And so he closes the door, and then Nick finishes collecting evidence without a warrant.
Yeah.
And he eats out of there. But this time, Skanky sees the computer and thinks, "Okay, I'm going for this one." And so Rachel and I actually talked about this one a little bit
Off the pod.
off the pod because this isn't quite Skanky being hypocritical. This is more the warrant should have covered access to the electronic records,
Right.
but the consequences of Skanky's casual sexism are that the lady in charge of the records is punishing Skanky for being a douchebag.
Yeah.
By denying him access to
Easily searchable records.
per the letter of the warrant,
Right.
but not the spirit of the warrant. And so Skanky's like, okay, technically I should have access to the electronic records.
Yeah.
So this time he's going to go for it. He sees an easily accessible terminal. He goes for it.
Yeah, and so then we get Nick driving and Nick pulling into his parking spot as the sun is rising. So conceivably, Skanky rested the day and then just showed up at the hospital with the warrant.
I didn't see the sunrise.
Yeah, it's like pink in the background.
Okay, so we have Nick spends the day in the trunk, and then at dusk he gets out and goes to the police station.
Yeah. And then they
While
both spend
he's-
the night working.
We don't know how long Nick has been at the we don't know what time in the night it is.
Yeah.
It could be 10 o'clock. It could be 2 a.m. It could be 4 a.m. Who knows?
They both put a little time in this night, basically.
But Nick is talking to Stone Tree. Skanky calls, and Skanky says, man, I've been, busting my ass reading these records. And Nick is like, well, screw you. I'm not going to help you with them because I'm going home. And Stone Tree stands back and lets Nick not assist his partner.
Nick gives him a rundown on what he's supposed to be looking for. He says somebody who was
And he says,
a male within the last 5 years, possibly discharged, violence against women, probably his mother or some close family relative who's a woman. And you mean Norman Bates.
Oh, let me spell that for you.
Nora. Okay, whatever, Skanky. And so Nick's like, you know what? That's a funny joke. You know what else is funny? I'm going home. See you later. And so he dips and goes home.
Has a drink.
Yeah, gets a drink. And then Skanky shows up at his apartment.
Probably at around dawn. Because we don't know if
this
they're
isn't
working
gonna
the
make
same.
sense. We can just let it lie. Just let this
This
lie.
was the most confusing part.
Yeah.
I thought they met back up at the police station, but Skanky shows up at Nick's apartment.
Right.
And it must just be their normal pattern. Skanky shows up at Nick's apartment for the shift handoff.
Yeah. And so he shows up with a folder.
What is it?
Well, after much time and trouble on a little bit of luck of the Skanky, my best guess, I have at least 50 candidates.
Any previous homicides?
One, his mother when he was 15.
Right.
he hands
'cause
it to Nick.
With the electronic records access, he found.
Yeah, he
this
was
person
actually
real
able
quick.
to find and prevent further murders.
He was able to find 50 likely cases.
No, this was the best out of 50.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
but
yeah.
he had 100 boxes of documents.
Right. Right. So, surprise, it sounds an awful lot like the patient that Christina Noble remembered randomly in the apartment. And he gives this folder to Nick. And in the meantime, Christina Noble's on her way to work at night. This is where we just need to it's never going to make sense.
Right. Is this dawn of the second day or is it dusk of the second day?
It's never going to make sense. You just have to suspend.
Anyway, it's nighttime now.
It's nighttime now. Guess what, guys? It's nighttime now. And so Christina Noble is on her way to work and she gets a phone call. And this is why we couldn't talk about the fact that the killer was creating a Christina Noble lookalike every time he murdered. Because if anybody at any point had informed Christina Noble that this guy might be after her, she would not have taken a phone call from a former patient. Oh, the former patient.
The former patient.
Matthew.
The one most likely case.
Yeah. And been like, oh my God, you got out? I'm so happy. I'll come see you.
I didn't know you were released.
I'm going to come see you alone at your apartment without telling anyone else where I'm going. Okay?
It's the most 90s plot ever.
Yeah, so that's why we couldn't make a big deal out of it, because if she knew, she wouldn't have done it. It wouldn't be believable.
Yeah.
And then we get our filler, which if this filler looks familiar, it's because we just used it 5 episodes ago. The one where he's laying on his back and throwing tarot cards up.
Well, we didn't use the tarot card one.
We
used
did.
the
No,
chess
we
one.
totally did, because he throws it up at the camera and it almost hits the camera. And I made a comment about, whoa, that was a good toss.
Okay, but it was a different episode than the chess one.
No, it's the same.
The chess one was...
Are we going to have to watch another episode to clear this up?
It's okay to be wrong, honey.
Okay, so we rewatched.
We went back to episode 5.
Yeah, okay, so Matt was right. We get the chess scene from Dying to Know You, and then the card scenes in another episode.
I think the chess scene is also in that same tarot episode.
Well, you know what's throwing me
It's
off
reused a lot.
is the fancy dress coat that he's like the lounge
It's the
coat
same outfit and
that
it's
he's
the same room layout.
Yeah, and it's the
furniture,
same
and
top-down camera angle.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is recycled footage. You know what else is recycled footage? The footage of him driving in the car immediately afterwards, where he's got the popped collar and the white sweater from Dark Knight.
Yes, when he's on the way to the station.
Yeah, when he's on the way to the station.
Or he's on the way. Yeah, he's on the way to the radio station.
Yes,
Yes.
some station of some.
But then he shows up at the radio station and he's wearing the like suede shirt.
right, the suede shirt. I can
And we were
feel the shirt.
reminiscing about.
Yes.
I had like a maroon, like suede button-up shirt.
Oh, you had the
when
shirt
Rachel
in
and I were
maroon.
dating.
Yes.
And
Oh my god,
both of us can remember it.
can fucking feel the shirt.
It did not breathe
No,
at all.
it had to
was
be
so heavy.
So hot. It weighed
It was
like
a heavy
5
shirt.
pounds.
It was a nice winter shirt.
Yeah. If you like sweating.
If you like, well, and we're in the South, we just accept sweating as a natural consequence of existence.
Of existence. But yeah, this is I can like this texture of shirt is just, but he's not wearing it. He's wearing a black shirt with like a black jacket. He's changed his shirt.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
it's still
he went
black.
Back home and
Yeah. He's
slipped
not
into
wearing
something
his
more comfortable.
maroon jacket with his black shirt. He's wearing a black longer shirt, longer like trench coat with his not his usual trench, but like we don't get our khaki trench coats. Well, maybe right at the beginning or after one of the bodies. But we don't. I should make a note of every time we see our khaki trench coats. Meanwhile, they find out that Christina Noble is missing. Somehow, the fact that both Skanky and Nick were fucked off doing something else and not paying attention to where she was has led to her disappearance. Because the guy at the radio station who directs the phones just happily transferred this phone to her car phone, guys, which is why when Nick tries to call her and it says the person that you're trying to call
the
is not
mobile
available,
caller you're trying to reach
is not available because you can't take that shit with you. Car phones were built into the car. They were
Right.
all part and parcel.
tied into the car
It was
battery.
tied into the car battery. You couldn't take it out. And we find out who the bad guy is. So we finally get Matthew, finally get to see him. And it's the guy from Stargate. From
Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, Stargate Atlantis. And so Nick, which Matt, right, he was like, oh, it's the guy from Stargate
It's
Atlantis.
like the baby-faced nerdy guy from Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, and so Nick
Hey.
takes over as the radio host.
Well, the lines are open if anyone out there feels like talking. Tonight's subject is fantasy. Have you ever acted yours out?
In an effort, a well thought out plan to find Christina Noble.
That Nick just came up with in the moment.
Yeah, he's like, guys, I got it. Put me on. Put me in, coach. I'm ready for this. Which is an odd parallel to the fact that LaCroix's going to get a radio program in the next season. Oh my God. Did you guys not know that LaCroix's coming back? LaCroix's coming back. Yeah, I knew he was.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. And he gets a radio program, which is the motherfucking highlight of this show. And
Yeah,
I cannot
absolutely.
wait until it comes back. And so Matthew can't resist. He calls in because Nick's sultry tones just draw him out. And not only that, they draw him out for well past the amount of time it takes for them to trace the call. Not just the number, but the address. Everything.
Well, it's a landline. And
Yeah.
landlines are very fixed to a physical address.
Right. I mean,
Which doesn't happen with computers on the internet now because the IP addresses can switch around whenever you want.
right. Yeah, this is
But yeah, for a landline
Yeah.
telephone.
This is a very direct thing. So Nick is in the middle of talking to him. He looks over. Skanky gives him a thumbs up and he's like, we got the address. And then he just gets up and leaves. They know this guy has Christina Noble.
He knows that they know that this guy is listening to the radio program right now because this guy just called into the radio program.
Right.
If you just hop off the radio program,
If you're literally
he's gonna
like,
know.
If you're literally like, hi guys, I'm a cop. And I just traced that guy's call and I'm going to go to that address right now. That absolutely won't lead to negative consequences at all. And in fact, it doesn't. Oh, wait, no, it really fucking does. Because the guy takes Christina Noble up to the roof because he has to murder her up there and not in the apartment, which is really lucky because it's easy to get to the roof when you can fly. So Nick takes off from the radio
if
station.
this is actually his apartment, he doesn't want to clean up blood in his apartment. Every other killing that he's done has been in someplace not his, where he
Right.
can just leave the mess, right? But this is his place. He doesn't want to make a mess. Because who's going to clean it up? Not his mother.
Ooh. Wow, I didn't know where that was going. I was along for the ride. I was, but I didn't know where we were headed.
I wasn't sure where that was going, and
Wow.
I'm glad I found a way to tie it back.
You were like,
I'm riding this train until it arrives at the destination.
hey, we got there together. As usual, honey.
Woohoo!
So Skanky hops on after Nick leaves instead of being backup, which I think is really funny. But Nick lands on the roof, grabs this guy, and this guy is almost number 12 in our list of bad guys that Nick has exposed himself to. But he falls on a large electrical transformer and gets fried. Which
Yep.
Nick just immediately turns around and starts flirting with Christina again. He's like, oh, hey, you doing all right? And she's like, oh, I twisted my ankle. Oh, and there's a dead guy over there. That cool with you?
Well, Nick immediately, the first thing Nick says is, you did everything you could.
Yeah. And she's like, you're right, I did. I'm fine now.
All right, let's throw some let's bang it
Yeah.
energy at each other now.
Let's toss some fuck me energy at each other. Just a little bit. It'll help my ankle heal. Yeah. And that's the end of Christina Noble. We don't see her again after this because then we cut to Nick is crossing a street and he gets an ogle. He ogles the rollerblader or the roller skater.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, roller skater rides by and Nick gets like a little side eye. Gets a little skanky ogle in. But he doesn't, it's not gross.
If you don't hold it, it's not ogling.
He gets a glance then.
Yeah, he takes a glance. That's a reactionary thing. It's
Wow, I
built
loved
in.
that male version of what is ogling and what is not ogling. Thank you for that perception.
You're welcome.
In that moment. So Nick crosses the street, gets in the car, and hands Skanky some food. So he's clearly bought Skanky some kind of a meal. And Skanky, who has been listening to the new host of Christina Noble's old television show or radio program, quickly turns it to like classical music. And Nick is like, oh, this isn't what you were listening to, is it? And Skanky's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, and
So-
he hits like the previous channel button.
Yeah, on his 1962 Cadillac, which just has like
It
two
may have an
dials.
aftermarket radio.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so he pushes the button and it takes it back to what he was listening to previously, which is the radio program. And apparently the theme is men in uniform. Do
Oh, yeah.
women really fall all over you? And Skanky looks really uncomfortable. He's like trying to desperately just eat his sandwich.
But Nick is already calling in.
Oh, yeah. This is a really funny bromance moment where Nick is like, you can't repress this kind of stuff, Skanky. You got to let it out. It's going to cause problems. Trust me, I know. One time I watched my vampire dad murder some guy that he pretended was his dad, and it was really weird. So I'm going to help you get on this radio program so we don't end up in that situation again. And so we end with Skanky picking up the phone and going, well, it happened when I was a rookie. And then we cut to the credits.
Yep.
And that's the end of that episode. Overall, not the strongest episode.
No.
We didn't get a lot. I think what was missing is there wasn't a lot of there wasn't enough clarity to have real depth in this episode. Because we didn't really delve into the crimes all that much. There wasn't a ton of mystery over who did it. We didn't interact with the killer until the very, very end.
Right, and then even the people involved didn't really discuss the crimes or the detail of the crimes at all.
Right.
The most we got was her profiling the killer based off of one crime scene.
And I think the reason that this feels so jumbled is there's a lot of scene hopping. There's like radio station, room, where the guy's murdering someone. Like radio station, bam, 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 bam. I mean, it's like rapid fire. It's rapid fire transitions between scenes, between like everything that's happening. And we're really relying on dialogue to carry us through as to what's happening. Because we don't even know, which we're not juggling a ton of characters in this episode. Jeanette's not in this episode. Natalie's not in this episode. It's pretty much just Nick and Skanky and Stonetree and Christina Noble. And Stonetree doesn't feel like Stonetree. He's not helpful. He's not giving any sage advice. He's just angry, angry man the entire time. Nick is like cheerful but vacant. And then Skanky is just, he's literally only there to provide the nudge forward for everyone else. So the only one actually putting any work into the case, as usual, is Skanky. And so he's just providing Nick with the information necessary to move us on to the next scene.
Right.
We're not really, except at the very end where we get that fun Skanky Nick interaction. We're not really developing anybody's characters. We're not doing anything. It's just it feels like a filler episode, which is appropriate. We use some of our stock filler footage in it. But it just doesn't feel like we talk about or resolve anything. Maybe because the flashback isn't about Nick. So we don't feel like Nick is wrestling with anything.
Right. Right. Because literally in this case, it's just Nick remembering.
Yeah, he's just remembering like that time that
he's
that
not
Lacroix did
using
that
the
really
memory
weird thing
to resolve some current crisis.
Yeah. Maybe that's why. I don't know. It's a good episode. I always say that, but it's true. I've watched a lot of these episodes a lot of times. I really enjoy this show. So it's okay for it to be a mediocre episode among other better episodes. But that's what it feels like. Because it just kind of feels like, meh. Be one of those ones where you waited all week, you put it on, you watched it, and when it got done, you were like, well, that wasn't wholly satisfying. I don't feel like sated for the week. I feel like, oh man, I gotta wait another week to see if I get a better
now you're
episode.
just looking forward to next week even more.
Right. Next week's episode is going to be very Skanky heavy. So I think this is going to feel redemptive. We're going to get a little bit more deeper themes. We're going to wrestle with a little bit more. We're going to explore a little bit more of Skanky's character besides his very incel-like casual sexism, which we usually get. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Cool.
How are you feeling right now, besides sick?
Oh, well, looking at the scores, Dead Air has the lowest rating for any episode in season 1.
That's fair.
The next lowest one is Spin Doctor.
That's fair too.
And then next one is Dying for Fame.
That one's odd.
And then the rest of them are all a couple decimal points higher than those 3.
Season 1's not the strongest season. A lot of the 90s television shows, I feel like, were like this, where they'd get a successful pilot, they'd get on the air, they'd have a season 1, and they were just good enough to make it to season 2. And then in season 2, they really got the budget and the funding and the writing to make it that much better.
Right, increase the production value.
Right, because it was probably getting like the Nielsen ratings were probably just high enough. And the exit polls or whatever, where you would give, I don't know, you said you never got a Nielsen rating packet.
I thought they were a myth.
We got one time. I think I told you that. And it was like a paper booklet, and you put it on each TV.
Right.
And then you filled out, like if you sat down, you would write what channel you were watching, what program you were watching, and how long you watched it. And if you changed it, you had to write down whatever you changed it to. So it was tracking viewership, which we can do digitally now. So this was probably getting high enough ratings that they were like, okay, there's something here. There's some magic happening. Plus, this wasn't like anything else that was on at the time. I mean, Dark Shadows.
Well, in season 2 wasn't actually picked up. They were syndicated.
Yeah, they were first-run syndication.
They were independently funded, and then they sold the already finished filmed series to a studio, right?
Right. Yeah, they were.
Yeah, so this didn't even get picked up by a studio
right.
using the ratings.
But season 3 was on a major network.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That would have been, wow, this show has 2 seasons. It's got a loyal following.
Let's give it a
Book
shot.
it for another season.
Yeah. And we haven't got, I'm not even gonna, that's gonna spoil it. I can't even, I'm just gonna leave it. I can't wait till we get to the series finale because we're gonna have a lot to talk about. I'll leave it at that. So if you haven't,
I don't know what happens. I haven't seen the series finale.
no, you haven't because I never watch it.
And then Rachel hasn't told me about it.
No.
So Rachel will keep me in the dark.
I'm getting better at not telling you about what's going to happen. Have
Yeah.
you noticed?
You have been. You've been practicing.
Thank you. I have been. I've been trying to be spoiler free because I am not spoiler free. I like spoilers a lot. I don't care if people tell me what happens. So I have a hard time respecting that, but I'm trying. I'm learning. I'm learning that respect. I'm trying to be a practicing spoiler free individual. So anyway. Oh, you've probably completely forgotten our exit lines.
No.
Well, you should follow us on Instagram. I am working on it, guys. I've got like 25 followers that I have to keep happy now. I've made a couple of reels. I posted some pictures. I keep that updated more than anything else. And there's also a link tree there where you can click on it and find our links to everything. Like our website, our Patreon page. If you join the Patreon, you can join the Discord. And then you can chat with us, just like Ryan gets to chat with us.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Yeah, so seriously, go check it out. It's fun. I try to make it fun. Pippin's on there. You've heard Pippin. He's meowed. He's harfed up a hairball in the middle of a recording. I mean, he's
a contributing member of the podcast.
He is a contributing member. He's always here with us. He's here with us right now, aren't you, Pippin?
Until we build the pod lab.
Yeah, Pippin is unconscious. So do feel free to follow us on the Instagram. That's my recommendation. We did just put out a books talk with Kate. If romantasy is not your thing, we've moved on to sci-fi. It's pretty amazing.
Check out
sci-fi
Murderbot.
book. Yeah, Murderbot.
This was a recommendation from me to Rachel.
Yeah.
A skeptically received recommendation that has been wholly welcomed and appreciated.
It's magic. It is absolute magic. And if you haven't read them yet, I highly recommend them. And they're by Martha Wells. And when you get done reading the first 2 novellas, because they're novellas, they're easy. They're like Forever Night novellas. They're a monster of the week, sort of, for the first couple of novellas anyway. Read them and then go check out the book talk. We mostly stayed on topic this time.
Woohoo!
So we hope.
Because I wasn't there to interrupt.
Yeah, you were too sick. So we hope you keep listening. And
remember, sometimes the strangest things are also the most beautiful.
So be who you are and love what you love. Until next time, friends. Bye.
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 That's why you're engaged.
Hey. You have been listening to the
There you go,
second
Sky.
act of Rigoletto
Thanks.
from Roy Thompson Hall.
Since when do you like opera?
We'll be returning shortly.
Or is this just another aspect of your self-administered media literacy program?
The hour is late and the mood is kinky here on CTOK. This is Marsha.
I thought so.
And I want to hear from you.
Give me a
our
break.
minds and our lives.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear how the new host
Tell
was
us
working
what
out, you know?
turns you on. Tonight I want to hear from all the uniformed men in the city. What's it like? Do women really get turned on by your uniform? Come on, guys. Tell us about your experience. We'll be right back after the break with more kinky talk on CTOK.
Would you cut me some slack?
Are you kidding? This subject was invented for you. I mean, I'm sure you got some old war story.
Wait, hang it up, hang it up. Hang that up.
Repression is a serious thing, Skanky.
Hang it up, hang it up. Give it to me, give it to me.
No, it's almost as bad as denial. I don't want to see you in denial. I mean, it's unhealthy. Keep it up, and in no time you'll be on Dr. Noble's new couch, huh?
I can't believe you're doing this.
Hello. Are you a man in uniform?
Yeah, just hang on a second, okay?
Hello?
Yes. You're on the air.
It happened when I was a rookie.